everyone. Welcome to Bookends of Recovery. This is Laura. I'm a life coach, and today we are going to talk about handling triggers during the holidays because they are right around the corner, like literally just days away. So for some of us, holidays are a great opportunity to connect with loved ones, whether that comes in the form of family, friends, both. But for others, holidays means having to navigate being around people or situations that may lead us to trigger. And so we need to find ways to handle those triggers so we don't end up having to deal with like overwhelming anxiety that may lead us to like a setback, whether that's in our, recovery, our healing, or both. And so we really need to be honest with ourselves about where we are in our recovery and in our healing. And that means, whether you're in a solid place and have a great foundation, or whether you're on a slippery slope at the moment. We need to ensure that we're maintaining an awareness of our emotions by, just start off with doing a self check in. And you can do that a few times a day, whether you're having company over, maybe you've got family coming in, or maybe you're going away and you're starting to feel like that overwhelming sense of anxiety, just do a self check in. So you can do that by, if you are going away, go to the room that you're staying in, or if you don't, maybe you're staying at a hotel, but now you're at somebody's house. You can even go into the bathroom. Just find a quiet place. Just take a few deep breaths. Because what do I always say? They work. Deep breaths work. And take those deep breaths to help ground yourself. And then notice any sensations that you're feeling. Some of those ones to be aware of is, is your chest tightening? Are you having clenched jaws, tightening fists? But then there's those good ones, like your calming breath. Your heart isn't going fast. It's nice and steady. Those are the good ones. And then ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And maybe you're excited and joyful, but perhaps you are feeling anxious, or maybe you're disappointed about what's going on. And if you're not sure what you're feeling, that's okay. If you're kind of new into recovery or healing and you're not quite sure what emotions you're feeling, or if you're in a heightened state, try to name some basic emotions like happy, sad, the ones that are a little bit easier to attain. You can also, if you're new to my podcast, look back a little bit. I have a podcast on emotions. But this will kind of help you recognize. And then ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Is it because of a person or a situation? But remember, try not to get so caught up in trying to overanalyze, because that's just going to stress you out. And then the next question you want to ask yourself is, what do I need in this moment? So that can be anything from maybe creating a boundary, writing it out. We've talked about word vomiting. It's one of my favorite tools. Just set a timer for a few minutes and just write things out. It's called brainstorming, but to me, word vomiting just, that's what it was when I did it. It's just like, rah, you just get stuff on paper. And then, or maybe you just need to write in your journal. You can use a grounding technique. If you need ideas for that, you can go on my website or go onto my podcast. I've got that as well. I've got ways to journal on my blog, and then go through your recovery toolkit and review things that you've used that were successful before. And this sounds like it takes a long time, but really it just takes a few minutes. This is something you can do just quietly in a room to just kind of gather yourself and get yourself grounded. And remind yourself your feelings are valid. You're allowed to feel them. And just keep saying, it's okay. I'm allowed to feel my feelings. And I talked about boundaries. This is something, you guys know I just love the topic of boundaries because I had just lost my sense of boundaries along the way. And so when we're in these situations or with people that may cause those anxieties to flare, we need to remember to prioritize our self-care. And boundaries is a form of self-care. So remember, you have the right to create those healthy emotional boundaries. You have the right to set them and decide what your limits are. No one else can tell you what you can and cannot tolerate. Only you can. So that means even setting limits on time, like how much time you can spend at a particular place or how much time someone else can spend with you, even if they're at your house. Or if something is getting to be too much, step away. We have the right to prioritize our mental health. And we have the right to say no. And you don't have to go into this big explanation. It's just no. That's it. What do I always say? No is a complete sentence. And again, if you guys are, like me, you may have adopted some unhealthy ways to manage your emotions. When you were growing up, maybe you just didn't learn. I never learned how to manage my emotions properly. Nobody ever taught me. So I had to learn, because I picked up all the negative ways, right? Because I'm sure maybe some of you are familiar, like, here's the negative ways. We don't want to do any of these. We don't want to shove them down. We don't want to wallow. We don't want to lash out. One of my examples that I love to give, because this is one of the things that I used to do for no apparent reason. Let's just say my husband would put a glass on the counter. And I would just, why the hell are you putting a glass on the counter? You can't put it in the sink? And then he'd put it in the sink. Why are you putting it in the sink? You can't put it in the dishwasher? Like, obviously, I'm not mad about the glass. I'm mad about something else. Or I'm scared about something else, or it's just, it has nothing to do with the glass. And so, we have to look deeper. We don't want to, all of a sudden now we've got to put all this time in at work because we don't want to be at home because that's too stressful, or we're worried about what's going to happen over the holiday season, right? We want to avoid a poor sleep routine or overeating. We want to avoid spending too much time on our screens or passive aggressiveness. I was the queen of being a passive aggressive, or avoidance. And of course, we don't want to reach for our DOC. The things we want to do are learn how to name your emotion. I've talked about that before. You can find that also in another podcast and on my blog. I've got worksheets on it. You want to think about your spoons. And if you're not familiar with the spoon theory, I'll talk about it real fast. It's just when the concept is that we have a limited amount of quote unquote spoons, which is your energy to use each day. And so, those of us in recovery and healing want to make sure that we're conserving that energy so that we can plan it out. And if you want to look a little bit deeper into that, you can, I think I did a podcast on it, but you can also look on my blog for that as well. And as you're leading up to the holiday and on the holiday, set limits. Don't take on more than you can handle. All of us want to be the person that helps, right? We don't want to see somebody else doing all the work. But that doesn't mean we take on more than we can handle either. You want to make sure that if you have these negative thoughts that are creeping in, you want to challenge them. We've talked before about the technique of meet it, greet it, and transform it. And all that means is you want to meet the negative thought by acknowledging that it's there, or the negative emotion. You want to start by acknowledging that emotion's presence. And then you're going to give it a name. So is it fear? Is it insecurity? Is it rejection? Loneliness? What is it? And then from there, you want to transform it. And we're doing that by redirecting it into a positive place, because we're always wanting to turn our brain onto a healthier pathway. So you can do that by doing something positive, by having that attitude of gratitude. So we want to go from the negative to saying, rather than saying like the glass is half full, we want to go, I'm grateful for the cup. So we can shift our thinking from saying, what good is it, to what is the good. And so when we do this, after we have a negative thought or emotion, it becomes easier to not only keep from spiraling, but it also prevents them from popping up so often. So once you've transformed it, because once that negative thought pops up, you've acknowledged it, right? You've named it, and you're going to make sure that you think of something you're grateful for, and you're going to move towards positivity instead. And that'll keep you from spiraling and making you go down that rabbit hole. If you're going away to somebody's house, I've talked before about your recovery and healing go bag. You don't have to bring your whole bag. I know some people have created like this giant, well, I don't say giant, but like this big backpack, and I know sometimes space is limited, but you can throw a few of your favorite things into, just like a little travel bag or whatever. Bring that with you, and so that you have some of your favorite things that you can carry with you, even if it means putting something in your pocket so that you can reach in and touch it or smell it, and then that'll kind of help keep you calm. And don't forget, you can also put your thoughts on trial. If you need help with that, again, I have a worksheet and also on my blog. But you can, something else to kind of do rather than doing something negative, is take time to zone out while you're preparing for the holidays, because we get so busy, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else. I worry about, is the house going to get decorated? Am I going to have time to get gifts? Am I going to have money to get gifts? All the things. I know damn well. My kids are grown. My grandchildren are babies. Well, not babies, but toddlers. They don't care. you know, nanny's gonna get them something. Um, they don't care what it is. They're too little. And my kids, no, they just, if I didn't get them anything, they wouldn't think twice about it. But of course, I'm going to get them something. But then I always worry, are they going to love it? What if they don't? You know, what if they don't use it? What if they, what if? Again, my kids love me. They just want me happy. And I want the same for them. And then I think about it, and I wouldn't even think twice if they didn't get me anything, because I just want them to have a happy holiday with their family, because we're all spread out across the country. Uh, but, and that's what they want for me, you know, holidays and military schedules. We can't all get together, but that's just the way it is, and but we all do the same thing, right? So we need to find ways to alleviate that pressure. So we take time to zone out, right? And you can do that by just watching something funny. Watch, for me, I love to watch the movie Elf. I think it's hilarious. But yes, just stuff like that. Uh, if you have family traditions that you have created in your own four walls, keep doing that as well. Um, and did I say move through emotions? Because I have a worksheet on there as well about moving through emotions. Make sure you eat well, get plenty of rest, and practice good sleep hygiene. I probably say this every podcast, and it's true. I think you can probably hear I need to get my water. But stay hydrated. Do your relaxation techniques. Do your grounding techniques. Um, Make sure you're staying connected. The opposite of addiction is, that's right, connection. So reach out to your sobriety circle, or your healing hive, your support groups, your sponsor, your accountability partner, your trusted friend. If you don't have any of those things, reach out to me, email me, I'll get back to you. And then make sure you're practicing me time and that self care. If you find that you're struggling, text home or talk to 741-741. Those are crisis counselors, and um, they'll get back to you. They're trained. If you're feeling angry or frustrated, scream into a pillow. I mean, it works. If you need to cry, cry. Like, there's nothing wrong with crying. You can always exercise, like walk, jog, run, dance. But something else I wanted to talk about is, I know for me, um, and and I'll share one of my favorite, another favorite saying, right? I have like a million. But high expectations can lead to resentments. And one of the reasons why it's my favorite is because sometimes our expectations just aren't realistic, or they're just not achievable, which I guess makes it not realistic, right? And then we end up being frustrated or disappointed and, right, resentful. Uh, but things like, and I'll never forget, there was like this Easter meal that I made one time. The kids were like little, like really little. And I just wanted it because at the time I was single. So there, my first husband had passed away, and I just wanted it to be special. I don't know. And in my head, it was going to be like this beautiful I don't know, 50s dinner where it was going to be, this five-star meal, and, my mom was there, and everyone was just going to get along. It was going to be great, and, all was going to be wonderful in the world. And it wasn't. It just was not. And I just had these super high expectations. And I really was unhappy because I don't know what I wanted, but yeah, it just wasn't realistic because that's just not who we were as a family, you know. Um, my mom and I ended up bickering, and she was talking about things that we should not have been talking about. And so, now, did the kids care? Of course not. Like, they were just like eating food and whatever. But yeah, so I think we set up these expectations in our mind, and sometimes we have to kind of let them go. Um, and so we also need to be prepared, have a game plan going in. We have to decide what we're going to do and how we're going to handle ourselves if these kinds of things come up, right? Because sometimes potatoes are going to end up salty, guests are going to arrive late, family is going to bicker. Um, Topics like, oh God, especially now, like politics are going to come up. Um, Things that you don't want to happen are going to happen. So, how are you going to handle it, right? Because you have to remember, no one expects perfection when they're coming to your house or you're going somewhere or whatever. Uh, and truly, the holidays are supposed to be about spending quality time together, not causing stress to everyone around you. So, if you're feeling anxious, take that moment to pause and do your self check in. But don't feel pressure to engage. If that hot topic is coming up, you can be quiet. And if someone keeps, pressuring you, just, well, I really haven't thought about that, or I don't really have an opinion on that, or just, and if it keeps going, just excuse yourself and walk away. Um, Keep your focus on gratitude. If if you have to, shift focus elsewhere if possible. But yeah, step away if you're getting anxious. Uh, be flexible when possible. Because I know for me, for a while there, I was not able to live in a gray world. So that was an adjustment for me. Everything used to be very black and white. So I had to learn how to be flexible because I didn't like not feeling like I was in control. And so when things didn't go my way, it was like very, oh, you can't see me, but it was like, so I had to learn about flexibility. And that doesn't mean compromising your boundaries, but it does just mean learning how to, if um, Uncle Joe wants to go off on a tangent, just let him go off on a tangent and you can just nod and walk away. But if things are getting too uncomfortable, you can leave. Or you can ask that person to leave. Because nobody should be uncomfortable and nobody has the right to make everyone else around them miserable. Uh, and then there's the other part of that where it's perception versus reality, because sometimes things aren't always what we think they are. Um, Especially when we're going into the holidays and things are very, at least for me, heightened because of what happened on a holiday a long time ago. But we may see things from a different perspective because of our past experiences and past hurt and trauma. So I'll give you some examples. Like we may say disappointment in our mother's face, or anger in our brother's eyes, or misunderstanding in our cousin's looks. Um, but the reality of it may actually be, your mother missed you, or your brother's concerned about you and wants to talk. Maybe your cousin is curious about you. And so sometimes it just takes being able to know what it is. And so there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of techniques to help you manage those triggers. As always, I'm going to list them, and know that I'll just say you can find it on my website, so you're not having to sit here and listen to me go over each one. But of course, like the relaxation techniques, deep breathing is on my website. Finger holds, that's on my website. Walking meditation, if you're not familiar with that, you would just say something like, as you're walking, just quietly either think or say to yourself, and you could do this. You can be like, you know what, I'm just going to take a quick walk outside, and then just walk around the block and kind of focus on the walking. And as you're doing it, you can tell yourself, foot rising, foot moving forward, foot descending, foot rising, foot moving forward, foot descending. That's a lot for me to remember. I prefer just saying something like up, forward, down, up, forward, down. And then while you're walking, just remember to also be aware of your breathing as you walk. So you can do this just by saying, breathing in, I take a step, breathing out, I take another step, breathing in, I take a step, breathing out, I take another step. So that's just a good way to kind of focus your attention on the walking and your breathing as you bring yourself, to the present and redirect yourself. You can also try guided imagery. That is also on my website. Counting, yes, it sounds so silly, but it works. Just count. Count in your head. It'll ground you. Aromatherapy, if you have the ability to put like essential oils or something in your bag, I highly recommend putting in a baggie so it doesn't explode all over your stuff, or something else, your favorite lotion or something like a travel size, and bring it with you. This way, if things are getting tense, you can just apply the lotion, and that'll kind of trigger you to calm. Keep your your travel recovery kit handy. Use that grounding anchor like I talked about, whether you can keep it in your pocket. Some people like to use either a rock or a shell or a coin or something that means something to them, so it's handy. So if you are sitting at a table and things are being talked about that you just are like, oh my gosh, why are we talking about this right now? You can reach into your pocket, pull it out, and just have it in your hand. If you have affirmation cards, you can bring them, or you can have them on your phone for easy access. If you're not familiar with what they are, they're on my website. Same thing with, if you're not familiar with an emotions jar, this is a jar or a container where you can store your fears, your worries or resentments, things like that. And then you put them in the container or the jar. I have used, when I first started doing it, I put them in a Tupperware container. And then a friend of mine gave me an actual ceramic jar. But when you travel, you can just use a small Tupperware container or whatever you want. Just use a smaller version. But the idea is that you write down whatever is concerning you on a small piece of paper. fold it up or roll it up, and then place it in the container. And the act of writing it is going to help free your mind. And that's going to get it out of your head and help you let it go. And the act of writing it helps you reduce your anxiety. And just keep in mind, we don't control the universe, we don't control others, we only control ourselves, right? But then you go back to that jar. Uh, Ideally, when you're at home, you'll go back in a few weeks, see how you're feeling about, whatever it is, your fear, your worry, your resentment. On your, if you're away, you can go back to it in, a little bit and see how you're doing with it. So, as you prepare going into the holiday, go ahead and create a game plan to see what you can do to prepare ahead of time. Things like updating or creating affirmation cards, or doing, if you don't have a healing or recovery kit, get one started. Get one for traveling or whatever. Maybe you need to make an emotions jar. And then really sit back and think about what boundaries you need to make, your expectations versus reality. But if you have any questions or you need any help, please let me know. Like I said, I have a bunch of worksheets for free, downloadable on my website, lifecoachlaura.org. I'm happy to help. And I wish all of you a wonderful holiday season. You definitely deserve it. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. Have a great one.